Welcome to Talkin Bengals, your home for innovative insights into all things Bengals. Follow Talkin Bengals on Facebook and Instagram at Talkin Bengals or listen on your preferred podcast app. Now, let's start talking.
Hello and welcome into Talking Bengals. This is an exciting episode tonight after a very depressing Sunday. We have to get into it, so I guess we do. But first, got to welcome our guest, Clement from SumerSports. Sean, how are you?
I'm doing good. Casey, good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you as well. And we actually have the entire cast here and in addition, so that's awesome. We got Hoop with us tonight. We got Burns minus a mustache. Must have lost a bet or he realized he looked terrible with it anyway. And then we got Josh back with us this week. Oh. I'm going to throw Sean right into the fire here. Even though you're not primarily a Bengals fan, I want to get your reaction, the unbiased reaction to the Texans game.
Yeah, I think a lot of people didn't see the Texans coming this year because they're like, they have so many holes on their roster. And, of course, rookie quarterback is such a dice roll, right? Like we've seen way too many high pick busts to just assume a guy's going to be good. But I think by this time of the season, like if you're underestimating the Texans, that's at your own peril. Like that's exactly. A damn good team. So that was my first reaction to it. It was like, well, I was a little surprised that the Bengals lost to them, but not that surprised, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, they're a tough team, and I'm going to let Burnsy go next here because I know he has love for the Texans, so we might have to shun him from the podcast next week. But go ahead, Burnsy.
Well, my admiration for the Texans kind of went away when they did, that big fire sale, J.J. Watt, DeAndre Hopkins, and the guy up north now. This was a trap game. We said it last week on the podcast. This was definitely a trap game that could essentially just, everybody's looking forward to playing the Ravens and getting to them. And that for almost majority of the game, that's what it felt like. It was like, oh no, we fell into the trap of what was the Texans. The Texans are a really good team. Yes, they don't have a lot of big names outside of CJ Stroud, but Tank Dell is a baller. He's going to be a great 2 or 3 in another offense in the next year or two. If he doesn't get re-signed within the Texans, and it just, the defense, the secondary, I can't say the whole defense, but the secondary specifically just played, inconsistent. And I'm sure we're going to get it.
That inconsistent.
Yeah, it was just inconsistent, because we were making plays there for a little bit, then we stopped making plays, and then we just kept not making plays, and then all of a sudden we were making plays again, and then here we are, losing by 3 at the end of the game.
Zach, I appreciate you not calling out my comment. Go ahead, Sean.
So what's really interesting too is like if you look at the strengths and weaknesses of the Bengals and then how the Texans beat them. The Texans basically beat the Bengals in the place where your defense is the strongest. The Bengals this season so far, if you look at like expected points added from a rushing standpoint. So like how good are you against the run? They're 28th in the league, which is not particularly good. But against the pass, they're 13th in the league, so a little bit better than average. But the Texans just came in and threw all over the Bengals, essentially. Like the explosive play rate of 23%, which is, the best mark of any team thus far this season. So when they were going for big plays, they got them. Yard per play at 7.3, and they were getting almost 0.4 points in expected points per play on the pass. Like that's an extremely efficient passing attack against what is normally a decent pass defense of the Bengals.
Yeah. It almost like the Bengals forgot how to cover people, and this Noah Brown guy came out of nowhere. So Zach was kind of making light of my comment I put on our Facebook chat during the game, CJ Stroud and his group of flunkies. That's not quite accurate. They have some talent. They're a good team. But it's just like, who are these receivers? And who is this guy that I've never even heard of? I've heard of Tank Dell before. I heard of Woods before. Like, who's this guy that is killing us? And he's open by 15 yards. Nick, what other comments you got on the wide open receivers?
Oh, I got so many. And as you know, with Casey, Josh and Bernsey, Sean, I'm not a person who looks at statistics. I kind of go based off of the feel. And
the opposite of you, Sean.
You don't say.
Yeah, I am completely opposite of you, Sean. I don't look at analytics at all, mainly because I don't like math. And essentially, looking at the coverage, they broke down coverage. They weren't passing off in the two deep zones. It was just atrocious, absolutely atrocious. The two guys that I thought would come out and have big games, they laid an egg. You had Turner and Scott did not do well, in my opinion. All in all, I think that the best case scenario coming up against the Ravens, I think that best case scenario is we get a good pass rush and get Lamar Jackson on his back. But that was atrocious.
Josh, any other thoughts you want to add before we move on to our awesome stats section, make Nick feel bad about himself?
Yeah, that defense, it just all game long, I was getting so mad. They left Brown open on every single play. Every time he caught the ball, it was 20 yards. There was just nobody around him. Cheeto was getting burnt all day. DJ Turner, yeah, Cheeto. He's supposed to be the number one. Sure didn't play like it. DJ Turner had some decent plays. Really, the only one on defense that did play good the whole game was Cam Taylor-Britt. He locked down Tank Dell most of the game. Wilson should have had that interception to begin with in the first quarter, I think it was. Might be second quarter, I can't remember. But the defense, they couldn't stop the run. Every time whatever his name is touched the ball, he'd be getting 8 yards. No, the running back.
Yeah. Singletary.
Yeah. Every time he touched the ball, it'd be 8 yards. 8 yards, 8 yards. It seemed like they just forgot how to tackle.
I don't think he's been that good over his career either.
No, he's been doing nothing. I think this is the first 100-yard rusher they've had in a game since, did they say 2017 or something like that?
Well, they played the Bengals.
Yeah.
Sometimes the Texans have the Bengals number.
I'm done with that game.
So we're just going to pour out our 40s.
To the next one.
The 40s on the Texans game. And we'll let Sean get into telling us all about his awesome stuff. Sean, take it away.
Sure. So, for anybody who hasn't heard of SumerSports, we're still a bit of a startup company, but we work directly with NFL teams to help with their roster selections. So a lot of the stuff I can talk to you guys tonight can either be based around like draft performances for the Bengals over these last couple of years, or top performers on the team, kind of how we see them, or really whatever y'all want to get into, or we can just keep talking about the Texans game, much to people's chagrin. No, I'm getting a lot of east-west on faces there, so won't do that. But yeah, so really, we try and take a holistic approach at how we're looking at rosters. So it starts with player evaluation. We have our own scouting staff. We have an analytics staff, a pretty significant one. We're a 55-person company. We have 10 professional scouts. My section that I lead is about 15 folks between cap contract, data analysts, and NFL scouts. So we're really what we focus on is player evaluation, for everything from cap and contract to draft selections to free agency evaluation and assessing the roster on a team.
I think one of the questions that I have that's burning for me right now is we all have all this praise for Cam Taylor-Britt, and is he really the top performing guy on defense? That would be one of the questions we have as far as the secondary performers.
So no, well, not according to our metrics. I would say he's not even the best player in your secondary at the moment. That would be Dax Hill. Which I think there should be some comfort there, right? Because you use a high-end draft pick on Dax Hill. He's a safety. Usually coverage guys take a little bit of time, but he's in the sophomore season now, and he's the 4th best overall player on your team, as far as we can tell. Now, there can be some fluctuation week over week with that. That might not end up being that way at the end of the year, but Hill at free safety has been doing pretty well. Trey Hendrickson, of course, is a solid edge rusher. He's doing decent as well. But there's some other good pieces to the defense that are adding a good amount. One of the things that I think the Bengals have done particularly well in their team building strategy is, especially on the defense and especially in these kind of weak link systems, is not over investing in any one guy, but just taking multiple shots at, like, hey, we got to fix our coverage. So instead of, just taking Dax Hill, it's like, okay, well, let's go find like 3 or 4 different guys and try and plug these holes. And I think a lot of teams, do make the wrong moves there. You see, when the Chargers tried to fix their defense, they went out and invested a lot of money into J.C. Jackson, and now I think the Patriots might have just cut him as well. But it didn't pan out, because you can't fix a system that relies on 5 guys with just one investment.
Got to have lots of lottery tickets, and that's what they preach in the Bengals front office is, you don't want to get rid of the 6th or 7th round picks because they could be something. But Burns, you got any questions? That'd be statistical, because like I said, I'm shocked. I didn't realize Dax Hill was that high.
So you were talking about, looking at the draft and things like that. The tight end position was obviously a key need from what we discussed going into the draft, and we clearly did not do that, or the Bengals rather didn't do that. So what is your take on, where the Bengals ended up taking in the first couple rounds versus, where Michael Mayer, Dalton Kincaid, and these high tight end draft picks ended up doing and have performed so far in this season?
So tight end is kind of a tricky position, I would say. One of the things that I think a lot of folks don't consider is the tight end position. The F and Y tight ends are essentially different positions, and that's even before you get into possibly like if your team runs a tight end H, or if you're open to running a tight end joker. Of course, everybody wants a tight end joker, right? But Travis Kelce doesn't just walk through the door every so often. So you kind of get
Keep looking though.
Right, you keep looking. I think Williams and Hudson, not Williams, Hudson and Sample have done a decent job, but they're both, they're in their 5th and 4th year respectively. You probably do want to find a solid answer there at tight end. But I will say that, a lot of those guys who are decent performers at tight end are usually available for mid to late round trades. Teams don't particularly like to pay tight ends. It's not a position that teams are investing in. And, we see the market kind of drifting away from that, with the exception of the joker tight ends like Kelce, of course. If you get a guy who has both skill sets, then teams are pretty willing to pay them. But if you have a guy who has a singular skill set, so like the Mike Gesicki's of the world, the Dolphins didn't want to pay him, so now he's with the New England Patriots because he was effectively an oversized slot wide receiver. And I think that's where teams get a little wary. It's like, well, why don't we just take another shot at another position, or get one of these guys with a low cost trade. So I'm not necessarily. I wouldn't ding the Bengals too hard for not taking a premier tight end necessarily.
Follow-up question real quick to that would be, what about the Myles Murphy pick? What was your all's analytics on picking Myles Murphy?
Oh, I do not have that in front of me.
I'm going to stump him right now.
Let's go.
This is like flight school all over again, right? Stump the chump game?
Right. Yeah. Let me
keep it to football, gentlemen.
I was saying, let me see if I can pull him up real quick.
I don't want to hear about your flight school again, Casey.
Hush.
It's okay. We don't want to hear about your time on the road either, Nick.
I don't either.
Yeah, we do not have a good grade on Miles Murphy. I'll just put it that way.
That's what I was afraid of.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise
He
me.
even played this season. I feel like we
He's going
haven't
to play
seen
a lot on
anything.
Thursday.
Did he?
No, he's going to play a lot this Thursday.
He
He has to play,
kind
but
of
it's
has
not
to
being
now with
played.
Hendrickson being out.
I mean, it's very pedestrian. He reminds me of who's the guy, Malik Jefferson, the linebacker they drafted in like the third round 4 or 5 years ago. They're like, yeah, he could really be something. And just crickets since his NFL career.
Yeah, he has not performed well this year, but he's also got like less than 100 snaps, right? So you don't want to etch the tombstone too early in somebody's career.
Yeah. First round draft picks by the Bengals are sketchy other than Dax Hill. I would say the secondary, they seem to be okay. Everybody else, you're like, much weary. Nick, you got a stats question even though you don't know how to spell stats?
So what I was thinking, I mean, I'm not a stats guy, but when you're looking at Joe Burrow, how does he stack up to the other quarterbacks statistically?
Good question. Let me run that real quick.
He's looking at that. I'm just going to go ahead and say, Nick, we're going to put not a stats guy on your LinkedIn profile as your headline.
Most definitely not a stats guy. I use calculators.
Change your name on here from Hoop to not a stats guy.
Yeah, to not a stats guy.
Yeah, one sec, gents.
Nick, I learned in the Army that if they're not making fun of you, there's a problem. So
You learned that in the
they're
Army?
making fun of you, that we love you.
Did that take the Army to figure that out, or did it just take you being a guy?
No.
I mean,
No, Zach had to cry in the corner of the locker room a lot, so yeah. He had to figure that out on his own.
ooh. Hey, I was a very emotional player, all right?
Hey, he fit in those lockers really well, okay, Casey?
Yeah.
So Burrow, and keep in mind this is a season-long stat, right? So there were several weeks where Burrow was kind of dinged up, limping a bit. We have him like right on the fringe of top 10 for performance in this current year. That's not saying, like, if you ask me in my personal rankings, where would I put him? I would not put him that low, but based off of having those couple weeks being injured and where they performed so far this year offensively, that's kind of where he's at.
My curiosity is going to kind of kill the cat here. Personally speaking, take away SumerSports away from it. What does Sean think? Where would you put him in the rankings of the quarterbacks in the league?
I'd probably put him top 3 or top 4, like somewhere in that range. I think he brings a lot of good stuff to the table. I think that to me, I think Patrick Mahomes is probably still the best quarterback, especially when you look at their like offensive weapons that they've surrounded him with. Other than Kelsey, they just really have nobody who can catch a ball in that offense. But then after that, I think it gets pretty murky, and there's a lot of guys who you could argue around, like, who's 2, 3, and 4, and 5, right? Like, and I think that's probably the bin where Joe Burrow is. It's
All right, George.
No, but like at that point, I think there's it comes down to what kind of quarterback you're looking for. Josh Allen is really a high risk, high reward type of guy. Throws the most amount of picks in the league, but generates a lot of yards and points. Lamar Jackson for a stretch there was looking like he had the 2019 MVP season like on repeat, and now that's cooled down over the last couple of weeks. So guys like that are kind of in the conversation. I think other than those two, and Burrow, of course, I think Dak Prescott's up there to me personally. I think he's probably one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the league.
In my opinion, I think he's underrated for a reason. He choked. He just choked under pressure, man. It's just so
I thought you were going in a different direction there, Nick. Oh my goodness.
Family
Only
friendly.
you, Zach.
Family
Only
friendly.
you.
This is a
Only you,
PG podcast. We have to keep it there. Keep it PG for the kids.
If Stafford could play healthy, I think he's got an argument to be somewhere in that realm, but keeps getting dinged up. By the time he got to the Rams, he had already suffered so many injuries so many times. He's just kind of in that phase of his career, right? But
I mean, if nothing else, we definitely got the name of this podcast episode. It's The Legend of George Burrow.
That's right. Legend of George Burrow.
If Joe doesn't name his firstborn George, this podcast just ends.
Right.
I would not bet that
John,
on this because this podcast has been here before him. So,
all right, Josh, what's your burning question? I can tell you got one.
I had one. I think I actually kind of lost it because we got to talking so much.
The professionalism on this podcast is outstanding.
Oh, yes, we are top notch.
what's professionalism again?
So I guess the only question I really had was, I think Logan Wilson's probably the most consistent and best player on defense. Just game to game, it seems to me like he is always where he needs to be. He seems to be the one that can always trick the quarterback. So I guess I just want to kind of know what kind of rating you all have for him.
Let's see. You said Logan Wilson? What?
So get the Jeopardy music ready.
Yeah.
My main crush said, don't go diving on him, man. Don't you go bombing his name out there. I like this guy.
Man crush right there.
We kind of have a middle of the road grade on him right now. Which
There you go, talking bad about my boy.
Right. Yeah. See, this is the problem with talking to the fan podcasts, right? Like, let's say the quarterback's top two, they get pissed and like, oh, this guy's kind of average. The hell with these stats. But
Once again, it's on his LinkedIn profile now. He doesn't know or care about stats.
right. Well, I have to add to mine, pissed off Bengals fans 2023.
Just put it in my notes that the next time Sean is on, that we would just keep Nick off the show.
Mute his mic
I'm
permanently.
going to vote for
throughout the
Burns
entire
being
episode.
gone, but
Okay.
Yeah,
He's one of
those guys who is taking a lot of snaps, but isn't accruing a lot of value, at least in this year. I don't have previous years in front of me, so I can't tell you if that's a 1 year thing just because of where the defense has been stressed this year, or if that's an overall trend.
Well, I know him and Pratt are turnover people. That's how they make their living. They're very from a rival's stat site, PFF. They're very middle to bottom in their rankings, but they make the turnovers. That's what fans remember. That interception, that fumble. You don't think about the missed tackle on a run. You don't think about the blown coverage. You think about that big splash play, especially in the red zone where they've come up huge.
What's funny is we actually have a pretty good grade on Rain Pratt. He's actually doing pretty well, but a lot of that could be, forcing fumbles. Those high leverage plays do carry a lot of weight.
Yeah. That's what the defense has lived on, and I think that's what killed them this weekend. They had some turnovers, they had some things go right, but the offense couldn't capitalize on them. And that's going to make us pivot into our next topic, the Ravens game. So, Sean, tell us a little about your experience with the Ravens and then what key stat the Bengals should be paying attention to this week when it comes to Baltimore.
So I think if you are looking for a glimmer of hope going into this Baltimore game, it's that Baltimore is 13th in the league on their passing efficiency. So their expected points added per pass. They have been one of, if not the best rushing team in the NFL for a number of years. Obviously, Lamar Jackson has a significant amount to do with that, not only in his own personal running, but the linebackers having to freeze, waiting for the mesh point, seeing who actually has the ball. Are they bailing to the outside to catch Lamar? Are they going to the inside to go after the running back? But if you're looking at, strength versus strength versus strength, I think the Bengals have an opportunity to take a play out of what the Browns just did. Now, I will say the Bengals defense is not nearly as good as the Browns defense. The Browns defense is on a historic tear. But, you know, if you're going to stop the Ravens somewhere, it's got to start with stopping the pass and just force them to run, because then they become predictable. When they can only run, that's when you can make the run a lot less efficient.
Yeah, and in years past, I've seen the Bengals, if you can get up on the Ravens, that's when you're successful. When you get behind and that defense, just like I saw, Sunday against the Texans, if you let the defense just pin their ears back, be able to pass rush because they know you have to pass, Bengals are not good in that situation, but neither are the Ravens. So it's whoever gets up on who. If you get a double-digit lead, this game can swing really quickly to whoever has that double-digit lead.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Ravens were also, their defense has worked really, really well this year. Like, their coaching staff has done a heck of a job getting a lot of production out of some guys who we thought, were kind of at the end of their careers. And so that's a testament to their coaching staff. I will say that they are keyed up to stop pass first teams, right? Like, their defense was purpose built to beat Patrick Mahomes. And because of the injury to T. Higgins, y'all are not going to be able to rely on the pass as much anyway. So, this could be a game where Joe Mixon just has to have a big day, because that's the weakness of their defense anyway. You don't want to go attacking into the strength of their defense, especially when you're down, your number 2 receiver, who's really a 1B receiver on any other team.
Yeah, and that makes us all nervous. You saw the face, and you're like, Joe Mixon has to have a good game. We're all like, oh, yeah. Joe Mixon hasn't had a consistent good game in a while.
Well, the thing is, he actually ran really well Sunday. He actually was like 4 or 5 yards a carry. They just didn't give it to him.
We have him as about 18th in the league right now on running back efficiency. So, he's not a world beater this season by any stretch of the imagination, but 18th out of the top 45 running backs, which are because you have some teams that run by committee, right? So they don't really have a top running back, but it's not bad. It's your top third.
But can he get the opportunities, even if he's playing well? I mean, Burrow loves to audible out of it. He'll just call something else and pass the ball. Sorry, Hoop, go ahead.
I think that Joe Mixon really does have an opportunity to run the ball against the Ravens. I mean, he did perform pretty well the first game against the Ravens, but they went away from the run. And I think that, like what Sean's saying, you don't want to rely on the pass against a passing defense that was built to withstand that passing attack that Patrick Mahomes has. Patrick Mahomes has all those weapons, from the wideouts to Travis Kelce. And he also has his legs, which is very similar to Lamar Jackson. So we're looking at a similar style defense on that side. But on offense, keeping a balanced run offense to be able to keep them off guard. So that way they have to cover the run. That way those play actions open up the passing plays. I think that's where you really run into a lot of good opportunities, to really strike, even getting Jamar Chase downfield on those play actions. Heck, Tyler Boyd, I love that man. He's been around since 2015, 2016. He makes one drop ball and everybody wants to throw him under the bus. Come on. That guy's made more
Tyler Boyd's name out your mouth.
Yeah, Tyler Boyd has been around for the Bengals since 2015, 2016. The younger generation won't understand how loyalty works, I guess. But the man's been around for 8 to 9 years. Get out of here with that crap. Tyler Boyd. I'm
never going to forget.
I don't care what statistics say. Tyler Boyd is a great receiver. I know he's caught almost 70% of the passes that were thrown to him, which, in my opinion, 70% of the passes thrown to you in the NFL being caught, that is freaking fantastic. That's like hitting 1 for 3 in baseball. That's great.
This is breaking news. Nick has a stat. This is scary.
Hoop said he doesn't care about the statistics, but I was going to start praising Tyler Boyd, so I guess I'll just
Tyler Boyd is a workhorse. He is the modern day TJ Hushmanzada, and I'll bring back the Last Start podcast because I love TJ Hushmanzada. I love Tyler Boyd, and when you open up those slot routes that Tyler Boyd likes to run across the middle with those play actions, because you're having an efficient run offense. You open up that with those play actions with Tyler Boyd across the middle. I mean, that's 15, 20 yards right there with Tyler Boyd across the middle. I mean, and it's just wide open. I mean, he's on those when you're having an effective run offense, you really open up those play actions, and it's Tyler Boyd all day long. You don't even have to worry about looking at Jamar Chase. I mean, he's going to be double, triple covered sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're definitely hoping to open something up in that intermediate middle area. Like if you look at how defenses are built in the NFL today, right? Like basically every good defense is built around too high safety. And the entire key to getting a good pass offense now is depth of receiving target. Like how many good receiving targets you have. And that's where the Bengals have done a really good job from a team building standpoint, because Tyler Boyd is still productive. Jamar Chase is extraordinarily good. T. Higgins is a number one wide receiver on half the teams or more in the league if he were to change teams. So 3 solid receiving targets gives you a lot of opportunity to create those mismatches, especially in that intermediate area. If you can get Chase downfield. Without him there, you're going to want a big day from your tight ends or from Tyler Boyd. It's going to be hard though, based off of the Ravens scheme, because what they're probably going to do is we'll have to see if Marlon Humphrey's fully back from his hamstring injury. If he's fully back, he's probably shadowing Chase with safety help over the top. And so then, is the defense going to triple team Jamar Chase, or are they going to put the other safety basically spying on Boyd coming through that intermediate area?
Well, then you open up Trenton Irwin, and quite personally, I love the man's hustle. I mean, he's got Pete Rose's hustle. I don't know. You can't replace hustle. Statistics, whatever, you can't replace it. The man's, a hard-nosed football player, and I love that. It kind of sounds like your statistics are kind of backing up my opinions. Is what I'm saying. Is what I'm hearing. Does that sound?
Yeah,
right,
we
Sean?
can't have you back on here anymore.
Don't inflate his head any more than it's already getting inflated right now. He has a big head to begin with, so don't pump any more air into it.
Everybody says they don't like statistics until they agree with them, and then all of a sudden,
I'm just saying that my gut is probably just being backed up by statistics right now. I mean, I'm just saying.
The first time for everything, but we got to move on to our next segment here. So we like to talk about Who Dey History, looking at past Bengals players. And the problem with this is we keep showing our age because we keep naming different people that people have never heard of because they're younger than us. Most of the demographic that listen to us are. So we've done our Shake and Blake. We've done Peter Warrick. Last week we did TJ Hushmanzada, which got a little bit of hate, which I was surprised about. But this week we're going with Domata Peko. So if you don't know who Domata Peko, you are too young to be a Bengals fan. That's all I'm saying. Like, he's literally was not that long ago. He just retired in 2020, and he played 10 seasons with the Bengals from 06 to 16. Some cool things that he did. He started all 16 games in 9 of those seasons they played, or 8 of those seasons he played for the Bengals. That's impressive, to start all 16 games as an interior lineman, to avoid those injuries. That's just toughness right there. And I feel like on the last segment, we just kept Zach in the penalty box. I'll let him talk for a little bit. Go ahead, Zach.
I just loved Peko as a human. If you ever saw him out, whether it was at Meijer, Best Buy, or anywhere in the community, the man just had a big smile on his face, and he was like, "What's up, Oos?" So that was always my memory of Peko around town. Didn't matter circumstances or situations. He just loved on people, and he was a great face to be in the community.
Josh, what memories you got?
I'm still looking them up because I got to pull out previous seasons here.
So we'll let you keep pulling. We'll let Josh think what he's got.
We kind of broke up there for a second, so I thought you said Josh, but you said Sean. So as a player, he was definitely one of the best on defense, consistent. You always knew what you were going to get from him. But as a person, I mean, when I was working out, I'm not going to say what automotive shop, but he would come in constantly. And he was always one of the nicest people, giant man, just an absolute behemoth of a man. But he was one of the nicest people you've ever met in your entire life. He'll come up, shake your hand. I've watched him walk in one day, shops completely full of people. He comes in with cookies and just starts handing cookies out to people. He's just a good dude. And that's just kind of what you could expect from him. He's just one of the absolute nicest people you're ever going to meet on the planet.
John, you got your stats ready? And then we'll let Nick close out the segment.
Well, I do. And first of all, let me just say, my favorite thing about Peko is that he was also a Baltimore Raven. In his last and one of his final years. No, it's rare to have a guy. It's rare to have a guy who can work the inside of the defensive line for that long, because it is an incredibly big place to operate. Like you look at guys like Peko, or you look at Calais Campbell, who's still on the Falcons, and just that longevity is rare and should be appreciated. One of the things that blows me away about players like that is just how long they can stay productive too. Because his 2016, 17, and 18 seasons, those were good seasons. Like, he was still a very good player at that point. When he left Cincinnati and went to Denver. I would just say that don't for any younger listeners, like, I think we undervalue longevity when it comes to players in the NFL, and it should be celebrated more often.
Absolutely. All right, Nick, what's the gut say?
Oh, I loved Peko. Just seeing his enjoyment of being on the field, strapping up the pads and strapping on the helmet. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It was the same thing with Hushmanzada, man. It's just the kid in the candy store, just, he's just enjoying the moment, being out there playing the game and seeing that pure enjoyment. I mean, that's inspiring to kids. That's inspiring to, the older kids who are playing in high school and going into college ball. I mean, he was just an inspiration to be on the field and just seeing what it looks like to do the right thing, and, on the field and off the field. I mean, he was a good role model that you could just be like, hey, look, kids, that's who you want to be like. I mean, he was just, I don't know, he's like a kid in the candy store playing on the field. I loved it. I loved watching it. He was just happy to be there. And, Casey, Zach, you guys have known me for, I don't know, since we were like, 4 or 5. I mean, it's just how I live my life. I'm just happy to be here. I love it. I mean, especially being on the field, baseball, football, whatever, just happy to be there, happy to be playing the game. Honestly, that's just inspiring to me. I love it. And Peko is that kind of guy.
Absolutely. Another great Bengal. So if you don't know Domata Peko, we've told you a lot about him. Go look him up some more on your own. We had a good article up on the website this week about Domata Peko. Take a look. You'll learn something. But, Sean, I'm going to leave this next part up to you. Do you want to lead off, or do you want to back cleanup?
Well, you're probably going to ask me a specific stats question I'm going to have to dig up, so I'll go clean up.
So, actually, not a stat yet, but it will be. We're going to go with score prediction. So let's go around the horn here. We'll start off with Josh.
Well, I've got them anywhere from Bengals winning from 1 to 13 points. If that happens, I'm going to get some money. So I'm just going to hope we keep it in that. No, I think it's going to be a really hard-fought game. Ravens are extremely physical. In the running game, which has been the Bengals' biggest miss on defense, it's going to be an uphill battle. But I think they feel the desperation now, just like the past 2 years, starting off 5-4. They're going to have to come out there, and they know they're going to have to win. So I think they're going to probably win by a touchdown. Go ahead, Nick.
I think that it's going to be a very hard-fought game. I think that the Bengals. I mean, obviously, I'm an optimist, eternal optimist. I just hoping and praying the Bengals come out on top. I think that they're going to come out on top. My gut's kind of telling me like a 15-12 ball game, 15-12, 15-14. But I mean, we're definitely not going to worry about the Ravens kicker ever missing a field goal. So, so we're either saying that they get all scoring field goals or 2 touchdowns in the extra points. So I think that 15-14, 15-12, I think is going to be the proper score. It's an AFC North ball game, man. It's going to be rough and tough. It's going to be fun to watch.
So I didn't get to say this earlier when we were talking, so I'm going to say it now. You can't let Joe Mixon only get 11 carries. We ran the ball 15 times total, 4 of those belonging to Joe Burrow. So you have to run the football this week in order to take off pressure from Chase and Boyd and Irwin and Yoshi and whoever is going to play tight end, right? That's key number 1. Run the daggone football, okay? And you run it down their throat, Boone County style, and just until they can't get tired of it, and you move on. The other side of it, like Nick alluded to, field goal range is anywhere between 25 yards to the other side of the field goal range with Justin Tucker. The dude is just an absolute freak. So we know they're going to kick the field goal any opportunity that they possibly can.
Anything inside the 45, they're kicking.
Bro, if the ball's on the 45 on the opposite side of the field, he's gonna kick it. He's just gonna do everything he possibly can. But that's special teams. Defensively, you've got to get after. You've got to hit Lamar early. You got to get to him early and continuously drive him to the ground. If you don't, he's going to get loose. And when he's over in the open field, we have not open field tackled very well the last couple of weeks, especially late in the games because everybody's getting tired of being on the field. But this is another high-profile game, and so we've got to do it. And as long as the secondary plays well, covers well between Zay Flowers and Odell Beckham Jr., which is weird to say because we haven't heard much from him all season. But, he went out and showed up in Cleveland. So we've got to make sure that we're covering both of those guys and doing well. Casey?
You got a prediction in there somewhere?
Oh, sorry. I got caught up because, you didn't let me talk about my piece early. I'm in the zone. It's probably looking at I'll go 31-17.
17 Bengals?
All day, every day.
Hoping so.
You just want
All
to
right,
make
so next,
money, don't you?
Yeah, so Nick's going to disown me, but I'm actually going to pick the Ravens in this one. I don't have a good
yourself,
feeling.
Casey. Nobody wants to hear it. Just mute it.
I don't have a good feeling about this. The Bengals in prime time, 0 for 12 on road games. Josh is going to be too close to me, and they've never won division games if Josh is anywhere in the same vicinity as I am when they watch them. So I think it's going to end up being 26-20 Ravens.
Casey, the Bengals were 1-9 or 1-8 or something like that on Sunday night, and they beat the Bills. So just get out of here. All right.
But have you ever wondered maybe when I pick against
Casey's negative Nancy-ness?
No. So hold on. But if you notice, if I pick against the Bengals, they have not lost this year when I picked against them.
That's like talking about a perfect game, Casey. You just shut your mouth and just not talk about that.
You never know. All right, Sean, what do you got for logic? So Sean's going to bring us back to logic here. Okay.
Right. Well, honestly, I like the Ravens in this matchup, and I think that it's going to be difficult to stop their run game the entire time. If you let them get close to the goal line, Gus Edwards is going to punch it in, and that's where they get really dangerous. I'm really worried about the Bengals' ability to contain explosive plays. Like you start talking about plays of 20 yards or more, the Bengals' defense is 29th in the league. They allow an play on 7% of plays, and so that worries me about the Bengals going into this matchup. I think if the Bengals are going to win, it's probably it's probably a higher scoring game. But I'm going to give a weird score and say Ravens 25, Bengals 21.
It's a weird score. I don't think I've ever seen a big like a football
the
game.
15-12.
The win and the scorigami. Like,
I'm trying really hard to make the math work, and it's just I can't do it.
Math is not my thing.
Yeah, once
I
again,
gotta
this
show
is
myself.
math on this, Eddie.
Is there a safety thrown in somewhere?
That's what I was gonna say. It's like the
Gentlemen, before we get off here,
our models say 24-21, but I wanted to throw an extra point in there because I'm biased. So
2-point
Sean,
conversion.
we really
Hey, at
appreciate
least
having you
admit your
on
bias.
here. I could talk on the podcast, no kidding. But Sean, we appreciate
Absolutely
having
not.
you on here. Any closing thoughts that you'd have for us or anything? We definitely want to have you back, especially in the offseason for like a draft preview.
I'd love to come back and talk draft with you guys. We've got a ton of stuff available for teams, and we can talk, breakdowns of how the Bengals are looking, by age group or by position, or talk about some of the scouting evals that we have, or any of that stuff. In general, the AFC is just a murderer's row. So there's a real good chance that all 4 AFC North teams make the playoffs, and all 4 fan bases are pissed about it. So I don't know what else there is to say. Like, when you have teams as good as the Bills on the outside looking in, it's a hell of a conference. And the only team I would say in the AFC that completely mystifies me and confuses the hell out of me this year is probably the Steelers. If somebody can figure out how the heck they're winning consistently, given the fact they've been outgamed like every single game, let me know, because I haven't figured it out.
Sure, it isn't their quarterback.
I don't think they know.
Well, we have come to the conclusion of this awesome episode, The Legend of George Burrow. So
Right.
thank you all for listening to us here, and you can subscribe to us on YouTube, Facebook, at Talkin Bengals. X, as the kids call it, formerly known as Twitter. The artist formerly known as Twitter, where we're not very often. My opinion on there. But Zach is doing fantastic things on our Instagram and Facebook, so check it out. We got great things going on there. Sean, thank you again for joining us. We're going to get out of here with our normal Who Dey.
Okay.
Who Dey?
Who Dey?